Before it became a thing, there was Dan going down the river on his own in the middle of winter, freezing my ass off, seeing if it actually worked. So yeah, I'd done as much research as I could find, and I knew the area from the land, but there's not a lot of information about navigating the river by Tinny. I knew it was a pretty special place to do the Tinny Rally because I'd grown up there, but like people go down every year in a Tinny, but not that many people, and not many people have written about it. You know, there's no guidebook to going down the river in a Tinny. So some of the information's not that certain, like things like how far between fuel for sure. How deep is it going to be? Like, especially in day 3 on this section, I'd found Facebook posts that had basically said you can't get through under lock 7. And those Facebook posts were about houseboats. So I knew houseboats couldn't get through under lock 7, but I wasn't sure whether or not tinnies could get through under lock 7. This was on my mind the whole time. It was like, are the distances I've calculated correct? Can I get fuel where I think I can get fuel? And am I going to be able to get through this shallow section under lock 7? Because people are saying on Facebook you can't get through. So, but I also knew from previous adventures that everyone likes to chicken little and say you can't do things, and then you kind of get out there and you often can. So in the back of my mind, there was people always saying things can't be done that can be done. But I guess you could also get out there and find that what they're saying is accurate. But I was betting on that what they're saying was an exaggeration and a pessimistic attitude, that they were saying you can't get through under lock 7. I was betting on them being pessimistic, more pessimistic than accurate. All the stuff I tell people to do now, like test your tinny, prepare, know how much fuel consumption you've got, all those things I tell people to do before they turn up on the Tinny Rally, I hadn't done any of those. Planned to set off at 10 a.m, set off at bloody 3 p.m, was already behind before I even started. So made it to the first campsite just before Wentworth. Arrived in Wentworth just after 4 p.m. I rang the lock was closing. I will go through the lock when it opens at 8 tomorrow morning. I'll head into town first thing in the morning and get some fuel. So yeah, we had a spectacular sunset. It was just unbelievable. The light was just so yellow, and the sun's just gone down now. But yeah, everything's performed well. First day, Tinny's performed well. Got to experience the beautiful Murray and see all the towns, little towns and townships and the houseboats on the way from Mildura to Wentworth. It's always good when you first get going because you've done all this work to pack, get all your stuff ready, and you finally get on the water. And it's just that sense of freedom when you're finally on the water, the sense of exploration. And you get going down the river and it's like every corner is just, what's around the next corner? What's around the next corner? It just keeps going, and it's just excitement plus really the whole way. Day 2, a bit cold as you can see. Just before Wentworth, beautiful day, birds are out. Just packing up camp. And then load up the boat, go into Wentworth, get some fuel. Just rang the lockmaster, said I wouldn't be there at 8 because I rang him just over and said I'd be there at 8 to go through, but not going to make it at 8 by the time I get fuel and supplies at Wentworth. So yeah, pack up the boat and let's keep going down the Murray. The next day I'm like, right, I'm behind schedule already, so we're trying to make up speed. And also part of this thing was I'm trying to test out if this is going to work for the Tinny Rally. I want to actually be camping at the right spots each night. I need to make the right distances each day. So I test times going through locks, I test where to camp, all that sort of stuff. So it hadn't gone well on the first day. I was half a day behind already because I'd left late. As you're coming into Wentworth, to get to Wentworth, you go up the Darling River. And so you pull your boat up at Wentworth and you tie your boat up, you get your fuel out and you walk into town. And so that first time walking into town with your little trolley and your jerry can or two of fuel, thinking, is everyone fucking looking at me? Thinking, who's this weird guy walking through town? So there's that mixed with, hey, I'm going to walk and go to the pub and have a beer after spending my tinny 50K. So there's sort of this mixture of awkwardness as you're walking through town with your fuel trolley to this excitement of I'm going to the pub and having a beer. And I've just been down the river 50K in my tinny and I'm going to go have a beer at the pub and then I'm going to jump back in my tinny and go to my next stop. So it's always pretty cool going to your first town that you arrive to by boat.
What I like about the solo adventures is you're only relying on yourself, so you have to make all the right decisions. You don't take enough fuel, you get stuck. Drop something overboard that you need, you're in trouble. Makes you focus on not making mistakes, keeps you sharp. Here's how they look loaded up for 2 people for a week. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is 100 litres of fuel. Using 82 on the longest leg gives you 18 reserve. There's enough room at the front there for some water, life jackets, etc. We've then got chemical toilet. There's a bag of food, say, in that spare bag. 2 chairs. There's a roll-up table. Down there we've got your fire barbecue hot plate, your trolley for getting your fuel from the servos. We've got 1, 2, 3 duffel bags at 70 litres, gives you a backpack each. 60 litre esky, bimby to keep the sun off that can be folded down if you needed to. And that's it.
Even the lockmaster thing, like the first time you go through the locks, you're unsure of how this thing works, right? You read the website of what you do, but it's always a bit nervous, I guess, to figure out what you do. You turn up at the lock, where do you sit? Where do you wait? You ring them if they're not there. Do you wave to them? Like, what do you kind of do? Do you float around? Do you leave your motor running? Do you not leave your motor running? And my motor at this stage wouldn't fucking idle either. So every time my $1,000 tinny in my motor wouldn't idle. So every time I kind of stopped at the lock to kind of idle around, the fucking motor would die. So then I'd be trying to start it. And then often at the lock when you're waiting around, the wind's blowing you in one direction. And then if you can't get your motor started, it can be an issue. Finally get through the lock and then into the national park section. And the national park section was where the Tinny Rally comes alive. You're out on your own, there's sandbars, you don't see another boat. Like, it is just, one of the last untouched wilderness in Australia.
So we're now right in the Murray Sunset National Park. This section now, there's nothing. It's just national park. Emus and birds and a little bit of camping you can drive into, but a lot of options for boat camping where you'll never see a soul and possibly no white man's ever camped before. Bit of a mission to go get fuel. Took about 2 hours to get into Wentworth, get the fuel out of the boat, go to the servo, go to the IGA. Ended up buying another fuel can. I calculated I have about 10 litres left over when I got to Customs House and decided that it'd be nice to have 20 litres left over in reserve. So I bought another 10 litre fuel can. Don't think there's many benefits to running out of fuel. Disadvantages outweigh the advantages.
Day 2, just nothing but cruising on the bloody river. All you have to do is get on the water and go jump in your tinny and cruise down the river. Find camp and cruise down the river and find a camp and have a beer and cook a feed, and that's your life. Like, that's your life for the next 7 days. And once you realise that, you're like, holy shit, this is a bloody cool week I've got ahead of me. Rhythm of the river is just such a mental health reset. It's just like the most beautiful thing to forget about daily life and just have the next tank of fuel, the next lock to get through, the next campsite to find. It's just like, fuck, life's pretty good when that's what you're doing with a day and that's what you're doing with a week. It's pretty special. Solo adventures are a lot different to going with other people, because when you're with other people, you can kind of make 2 bad decisions and get away with it. But when you're on your own, the most amount of bad decisions you can probably make is 1 and get away with it. So there's an excitement associated with that level of being on your own, and the solo trip is much more exciting and high consequence.
Day 3, cook up a feed, break camp, and head down the river to the next lock, lock 7, and then across the Victorian and SA border today, stopping at Customs House for fuel, and then on towards Renmark.
The other thing that was happening here is that you have the timber groins. So the timber groins are basically timber fences. They put in the water back in the 1900s, like the paddle steamer era. The problem is now all the thatching's gone, but the logs that are up and down in the river are still there. And they finish at about the water level. So if you're not watching where you're going or you're not watching navigation markers, they end at the water levels, you can't see them. So you go the wrong side of your reds or your greens, you hit this timber log that's about this big at the water level, which will give you a bad day. After I get through lock 7, I flying down the river, having the time of my life, just cruising, and then just bang, just run up on the sandbank, props out of the water, just hit the sandbank at 40 k's an hour. I think my tinny was doing 38 to 40 flat stick, trimmed out. So that we've found the chalet bit basically under lock 7. Bear in mind it was bloody cold at this stage, so you take your jeans off and you hop out in your undies or whatever, and you drag the tinny to where the deeper bit of the water is, and you hope that this shallow bit is going to end soon, because you don't really want to be dragging a tinny in your undies for the next 10 kilometres. People had said you couldn't get through, so at this stage I'm thinking, well, is this it fucked? Are we not getting through, or is this just a short blip, otherwise easy journey? I also kind of like it when adventures don't go to plan, because then they're a bit more fun. You got some stories to tell. Like if I'd started and everything was going well, it'd be kind of boring, but I'd started and my motor wasn't running well. I didn't know if I had enough fuel. I was already running late. I didn't know if I was going to get through under lock 7. So there's the right amount of uncertainty to be excited about the adventure ahead, really. So all that happened, having the time of my life, cruising along, missing the timber groins, haven't hit a sandbank for a while. So I come around the corner, there's this epic cliffs, and I didn't really know they were there. So I just kind of come around the corner, I was like, wow, this fucking cool thing just popped up out of nowhere. So then you just the Murray surprises you again. So you're just up having a great time, going past these cliffs, exploring that, and then looking for the next campsite. We actually made really good time. I made really good time. I keep saying we because I think of me and my tinny and my gear, but it's just me. But we or me made really good time. And we actually got across the border. And this was where I got fuel at Customs House on the border. We stop there all the time now in the Tinny Rally, and we run them out of fuel and all these sorts of things. So we know them well now. But Matt tells a story before the Tinny Rally started and before I started YouTube and these sorts of trips down the river. They used to get a couple of tinny trips a year through there, and that was it. And now they get trips through every week, basically, which has just shown, I guess, the power of social media and YouTube and the positive power to bring tourism into the region. So we got fuel there, continued on, camped at Chalwither Creek there because I was basically waiting for the brewery to open. I couldn't get, the woolshed wasn't open till Thursday or Wednesday. It wasn't open, so I had to wait until the woolshed opened the next day. So day three, about 100 k's today. Went for a look up this creek up here to try and find a camp, but everything was pretty muddy, so I've come back to the main river just here, set up a little fire, poured myself a whiskey, and yeah, tonight we'll set up camp and cook some steak or cook some sausages, whatever I've got left. And tomorrow on to the Woolshed Brewery, and after that on to Renmark for supplies. It's this important part of your journey, or important step of the Tinny Rally journey, because you've been through the wilderness for 2 or 3 days and you emerge from the wilderness, and the first civilization is not actually a town, it's a fucking brewery in the middle of nowhere. And so you park your tinny up and there's these steps and this sign, welcome to the Woolshed Brewery, and you walk into the old shearing shed. You get a beer and you get some to eat, and you sit down on the deck and you reflect upon the last 3 days of your life, of what's happened. You've gone through the wilderness, I'm having fun, I haven't died. And people don't do enough solo trips They don't do enough for the trips they want to, I think. And I mean, that's how the Tinny Rally came about for me. I'd wanted to go on the river for 10, 20 years and never got around to doing it. And since then, we've been able to make that a trip with the Tinny Rally that people can turn their 20-year wish and actually achieve it and do that trip, do that thing they've wanted to do for the last 20, 30, however many years, that lifelong trip they wanted to do. The fuel at Loxton is a long fucking way.
So the close servo's closed, getting repaired or overhauled. So the next servo's quite a walk. And Google Maps says it's closed, and that's next servo's closed as well. And the next one down's like a car or two down the road. So see if we can find a servo.
Get the fuel, go pay for it. Old mate's like, do you want a soft drink? I was like, nah, mate, don't need a soft drink. I'm going to the pub for a beer. He's like, where you going? I said, oh, I'm going to Overland Corner. He's like, in your tinny? He's like, oh, yeah. He's like, well, mate, the lock 3 closes at 4:30. I'm looking at me watching, I'm thinking, fuck, I've really been a bit cocky with this. So at that point, I'm like, holy shit, I'm trying to do the numbers in my head. Like, I know it's about 66K or something. I've got a little bit over an hour to get there. I'm only doing 38 Ks an hour. So I'm doing the numbers in my head. I'm thinking, fuck, this is going to be tight.
We've got about lock 3, closed at 4:30, 60 Ks from Loxton to lock 3, doing 38 Ks an hour. I've got about an hour and a half. I'm hoping I can squeeze it in. Maybe not looking positive, but I think it's positive that when it's going to stop, absolutely hammer it. And I can be there, get through lock 3, and then I can get to the Overland Corner Hotel for a bit. So I've got 60 Ks to go. And I've got a full tank, but I don't want to have to change the tanks because then I'll lose 5 minutes. So the longest I've been on the tank is 55 Ks so far. So I'm hoping if I hammer it and don't stop, I get 60 Ks on the tank and make it into the lock.
I get to the lock and it's literally like 1 minute before the lock closes and I can't see the lockmaster anywhere. And I'm like, fuck. So I'm ringing him. As I'm coming to a stop, I'm ringing him because I'm like, if he doesn't answer at 4:29, I'm fucked, because if it's 4:30, they just knock off, they're done. So I'm ringing, this guy doesn't pick up in the next 30 seconds, I'm fucked. So anyway, he answers. He's like, oh, you cutting it a bit fine. I'm like, well, yeah, I am, but it's 4:29, so let me through.
It's made it, eh? It's made it, yeah.
So he comes down and lets me through, and we make it to the pub, which was the best beer you can have when you think you weren't going to have that beer, and then you snatch it out of thin air.
Good morning. Day 5. We were at the Overland Corner Hotel last night. Today on to Blanchetown or Swan Reach, around that area. About an hour to Wakery, so we'll be there in time for breakfast, brunch. And then fuel up, need some more fuel, and then onwards to Swan Reach, Blanchetown area. Yeah, it should be a pretty specky day today.
At this point, there'd been cliffs, but the real cliffs probably start Telegraph Cliffs after Overland Corner, where you've got kilometres of 30, 40 metre high cliffs. And the scale of them is like, holy shit, that's really cool. That's a proper, real noteworthy attraction. You just don't realise how cool it is, and especially seeing it from the water, because you've got the scale of it up above you. Up the hill to Wakery to get fuel, and at this point I was running low on 2-stroke oil, so I had to try and find somewhere that had 2-stroke oil on a Sunday or whatever day I was there. Got 2-stroke oil, got fuel, got a pie at the bakery probably back into the Tinny, through lock 2. So at this stage, you go through a lot of locks and then more cliffs. And the cliffs down of Morgan are the ones where all the corrallers and the cockatoos live in. So that, again, that's a site you just don't know it's there really. You're just kind of cruising down the river exploring and you're like, all these bloody birds are living in the cliff there. So all these kind of unexpected things just really make the trip. And it's why in some ways with the Tinny Rally we don't give too much detail. Like people often say, why don't you give the Book of Dreams, which is effectively the guidebook, before we start? And I was like, well, I don't want you to live the experience in your head before you start. You come on the journey, you go down the river and you see one thing at a time, you see something new each day. And this trip for me was that experience of not having the surprise spoiled. Like everything was new, everything was wow. So we do try and preserve that somewhat for people on the Tinny Rally.
So, aiming to get through the Blanchetown lock before it closes at 4:30. Filled up a couple of times today from Waikery. Once I get to the Blanchetown lock, I'm just going to have to check my fuel and phone ahead to a couple of places and confirm they've got fuel. The Swan Reach has got a general store that apparently has fuel, but I want to check, because if it doesn't, I'll need to walk back into Blanchetown and get some fuel. I need to get through lock before it closes so I can camp where I want to camp, and I also need to have enough fuel to get to the next place. So we've got the boat tied up just here at Swan Reach, opposite the pub. So a bit of a camping ground here. It's a bit busy at the moment, but going to head up to head across over to the ferry there, and then jump on the ferry across to the pub. Have been at the pub, come back here and make camp.
Swan Reach pub, always a great feed on the river, overlooking the cliff. Yeah, a bit of a favourite of everyone's, the Swan Reach one. And here's where it probably starts to get a bit sad, because tomorrow's the last day. You're having this. Up till then, everyone's been getting more exciting, and there's been new experiences around each corner. Every beer tastes better than the last one. And then you get to Swan Reach and you're like, shit, tomorrow it all ends. So there's that element of sadness that comes in as well when you get to Swan Reach. There's a real element of appreciation for what's happened and what you've done, but also the sadness of going back home a little bit. And then, so coming into Mannum, it's pretty epic to finish an adventure like that. It's also pretty sad, because you just basically want to turn around and do it again or keep going. So on one hand, you're super grateful you've done it, you're proud of the accomplishment. On the other hand, you're a little bit angry and upset that you got to go home. Quite special to have that beer at the pub and overlook the river when you're finished. As I got to the end and as I was getting through this trip, I knew it was going to work as a rally. It was different to what I'd expected though, because at one stage I thought it would be a bit like sort of a footy club car rally where there'd be challenges and checkpoints to do. But I realised that you didn't need any of that, because the river was so spectacular that just going down the river and setting up camp and all that was a challenge in its own. There was no extra challenges or checkpoints needed. It was nice to pull the Tinny up and realise that doing this trip alone, like I knew it was going to work as a Tinny Rally. I'd proved that it was going to work, and now I could crack into bringing other people along to share this epic adventure.